But I like what you were saying, Topuria versus Oliveira.
Your first introduction at 55. He's kind of the, you know, the king
so
of 55
tall
and dangerous.
So dangerous everywhere, dangerous striking, huge reach.
Dustin Poirier sides with Ilia Topuria and warns Charles Oliveira's glass chin won't survive the storm at UFC 317.
The Ilia versus Charles fight.
I think Ilia, man. I think he's going to be way undersized against Charles. I just don't, unless Charles can sub him, maybe if he hurts him, but it's going to be tough.
Poirier has seemingly thrown his support behind Ilia Topuria in what is shaping up to be the most anticipated fight of the year at UFC 317. The former interim lightweight champion didn't mince words when he broke down the matchup between Charles Oliveira and Topuria, predicting that the undefeated rising star would expose a long-standing weakness in Oliveira's game. Poirier, speaking candidly, explained that Oliveira gets hit far too often, and against a power puncher like Topuria, that might be all it takes. Despite acknowledging that Oliveira could potentially submit Topuria if the fight hits the ground, Poirier leaned toward Topuria's ability to finish fights, a quality that has defined his recent performances inside the octagon.
The Ilia versus Charles fight.
I think Ilia, man. I think he's going to be way undersized against Charles. I just don't, unless Charles can sub him, maybe if he hurts him, but it's going to be tough, I think. Because Charles gets hit a lot, you know, and Ilia puts people away. I'm excited about it.
Poirier isn't alone in thinking this way. Topuria, the Spanish-Georgian standout, has made no secret of his plans for the upcoming lightweight championship fight on June 28th at UFC 317 in Las Vegas. The confident knockout artist boldly predicted that the bout wouldn't even make it out of the first round. According to him, Oliveira lacks mobility and tends to stay planted long enough to make himself an easy target. Topuria believes this is the perfect setup to secure a first-round finish and make a statement in his 155-pound debut.
Faltaba, he dicho la verdad, tiene 10 derrotas, no he dicho otra cosa. Tiene 10 derrotas, 5 por knockout, 4 por sumisión, 1 por decisión. Dice que es la división más difícil que hay. Cuando él estaba peleando en 145, hasta Cubson le ha metido una paliza. Ahí se tiene que acabar la conversación. Algo que no pudo conseguir en 145 libras, lo consiguió en 155, que se convirtió en campeón del mundo. Entonces, ¿por qué esa división es más difícil que de la que yo vengo? O sea, no le encuentro ninguna lógica, y por eso dije también que parece que no se ha leído ni la hoja de un periódico. Así que si eso es una falta de respeto, yo no sé desde cuándo decir la verdad es una falta de respeto. Yo nunca mezclo lo personal con lo profesional, ¿verdad? No tengo ningún problema con Charles. Seguramente una vez nuestras carreras se hayan acabado, podamos estar juntos, pasar un buen rato, cenar, comer, lo que haga falta, pero esto es un deporte, ¿sabes? Dentro de un octógono.
Topuria's confidence isn't unfounded. He has knocked down opponents in 5 consecutive UFC bouts and holds a pristine 16-0 record, with some of his most notable victories coming against elite names like Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski. His last few performances were nothing short of dominant, and his transition from featherweight to lightweight was driven by the grueling weight cuts he endured at 145 pounds. As he recently shared, the suffering from making featherweight began to outweigh the rewards. He described the experience as so draining that even material possessions became meaningless in comparison to something as simple as water. That mental and physical burden eventually pushed him to give up his featherweight belt and chase gold in a more comfortable division.
Bueno, en primer lugar agradecerle a Charles, la verdad, por haber aceptado el reto, ¿no? Algo que Islam no hizo. Y tiene que pagar el precio por Islam. Me da mucha pena por Charles, pero bueno, al final del día es mi trabajo. Voy a cumplir otro sueño más que siempre tuve, que era convertirme en campeón de otra división más, por lo que el resultado será el mismo de siempre, salir victorioso y seguir con el invicto.
Now stepping up to lightweight, Topuria gets a shot at the vacant title, a belt left behind after Islam Makhachev made the decision to move up and fight Jack Della Maddalena at welterweight. Topuria had initially set his sights on Makhachev, motivated by the desire to beat the man who had dominated the division for so long. But with Makhachev out of the picture and the title up for grabs, Topuria gets to face Oliveira instead, a man who's no stranger to title fights or criticism.
Charles Oliveira has been dropped by just about everybody that he's fought. What happens when you go up against a dude that's knocking people out, not TKOing people, knocking people out cold like Ilia Topuria? Ilia Topuria goes high-low. He can go to the body. He can go up top. We saw him one time at 155 pounds where he did get hurt, but the matador in him, he came back and he ended up knocking him out. Charles Oliveira is the bigger fighter, taking down Michael Chandler, taking down Justin Gaethje with those beautiful double legs. Charles Oliveira is the guy that has to make make those adjustments. If not, it's going to be the double champ. It's going to be Ilia Topuria securing himself as a 2-division world champion.
Charles Oliveira, a former UFC lightweight champion, has spent his career silencing doubters. He holds numerous UFC records, including most finishes, most submission wins, and the most performance bonuses. Despite his incredible track record, Oliveira has often been targeted by trash talk, with opponents labeling him a quitter or questioning his chin. He doesn't shy away from those remarks. In fact, he says they only fuel him. For Oliveira, the upcoming fight isn't about talking back. It's about doing what he always does, training hard, focusing on what he brings to the cage, and letting his fists and grappling speak for themselves.
É muito foda que eu não gosto de ficar falando muito que tudo que a gente fala, você tá ligado, né? Mas tudo burburinho, né? Mas eu acho que já passou a fase disso, né? São 15 anos dentro do UFC. Né, eu entrei um menino lá dentro, eu era só um moleque lá dentro, igual eu tudo que eu falei pesa, né? Eu sou só um menino no meio dos leões. Hoje eu me sinto um leão no meio dos leões, um leão diferenciado, um leão embaçado. O último, o Charles desiste, eu fui lá e atropelei. O último, o Charles não tem mão, eu fui lá e nocauteei. O Charles não tem o sei o que lá, eu fui lá e fiz. Então eu acho que assim, é tão bagulho, são tantas coisas loucas que, tipo, se a ideia é essa de ficar falando, de ficar cogitando pra ver se vai me abalar, cara, tipo, eu vejo os negócios, tipo, se é que vocês estão longe, vocês não estão vendo, mas se você perguntar pros meninos que andam comigo, você vê, tipo, eu dou risada, tá ligado? Porque é coisas tão irrelativas, enquanto eles estão falando, eu tô treinando, eu tô me dedicando. Você me conhece, eu não sou aquele que tem que ficar postando, aquele que tem que ficar falando, aquele que tem que fazer. Eu sei o que eu tenho que fazer. O trampo é dia 28, então eu tenho que simplesmente se focar e tá pronto. Tem 2 semanas para isso acontecer, então eu só tenho que estar feliz, perto das pessoas que eu amo e treinando e me dedicando.
While Oliveira isn't known for his trash talk, Topuria hasn't held back in the lead up to this fight. He's been vocal, telling fans to pick how he should finish Oliveira and even mocking him with remarks about needing a pillow for fight night. Yet Oliveira brushes it all off. Having been in the sport for over 15 years, he finds humor in the bravado and says it does nothing to shake his confidence. He believes that everything he's achieved speaks for itself, and he doesn't feel the need to respond to mind games or personal digs.
The first time, I think, like on record, you were asked about Ilia. I think it was at the media day before your fight with Michael Chandler, and you were very respectful. You said, you know, Ilia is someone who talks the talk, walks the walk, and he would have a lot of challenges at lightweight, and he would be a tough fight. All respect there. Do you feel like he's given you that same respect in the lead up to this fight?
Ele encontrou a entrevista, que acho que é a primeira vez que você falou publicamente do Ilia, que foi na coletiva lá da tua luta com o Chandler, que você falou que ele era bom, muito bom, que ele falava e fazia, né? Mas o que você tem achado aí de tudo que ele fala?
Cara, sei lá, cada um...
Ele te tratou com o mesmo respeito que você?
Não, com certeza não.
No, definitely not. Didn't treat with the same respect.
Why do you think that is? Because you're obviously one of the greatest fighters we've ever seen. We know all the records and the history you've made. Do you think this is just how he acts towards all the opponents, or do you think there's something about you that has led to that lack of respect?
Por que você acha isso? Todo mundo sabe quem você é, tudo que você fez. Você acha que ele é assim com todos os adversários, ou tem alguma coisa com você que ele tá sendo desrespeitoso?
Cara, sei lá. Por tudo que ele vem falando. Mas, na realidade, dia 28 a gente sabe quem é quem. Todo mundo sabe quem é o campeão da categoria, essa é real.
Man, I don't know. He's been saying a lot, but the fact of the matter is we're going to find out on June 28th.
The matchup between Oliveira and Topuria is more than just a title fight. It's a stylistic clash between two fighters who both like to move forward and pressure their opponents. Oliveira acknowledges Topuria's heavy hands and dangerous boxing, noting that the 28-year-old is a real threat. However, he also believes in his own power and versatility. Oliveira doesn't underestimate Topuria's jiu-jitsu, even though the Georgian Spaniard hasn't had to showcase it much in the UFC. At the same time, Oliveira's own ground game is elite, and he knows that if the fight goes to the mat, he holds the advantage there.
I've never seen Justin Gaethje went flying like that, bro. He dropped him and he went flying. Gaethje, he said it was like an electric battery or something.
Uma pilha de carro.
Sim, isso é bom porque, tipo, ele é o cara mais temido da categoria, o cara que falava que todo mundo batia mais duro, e você escutar isso do cara que falou isso, então isso é importante, isso aí mostra quanto que é hit gigante, quanto a gente tem poder que falou realmente. Não, o cara é duro, igual eu falei, tá vindo da categoria de baixo, então tem que respeitar as coisas lá.
Do you think you hit harder than Ilia?
for sure.
Yeah.
Physically, Oliveira will enjoy a notable height and reach advantage, factors that could play a significant role in how the fight unfolds. Yet he remains cautious, pointing out that MMA is unpredictable and that advantages on paper don't always translate inside the cage. He also speaks from experience when it comes to adjusting to different weight classes. Having previously competed at featherweight before permanently moving to lightweight, Oliveira understands how difficult the transition can be. He notes that it takes time to adapt to the power, strength, and grappling of the bigger fighters, something Topuria will have to deal with on June 28th.
You obviously spend a lot of your days fighting at featherweight, and you moved up and you've done so well at lightweight, made a legacy. What do you think is going to be maybe the biggest advantage that you have with him coming up and not having experienced the highest level of this lightweight division before?
Você, claro, já lutou nas duas categorias, mas você se fez o seu legado no peso leve, né? O que você acha dele subindo agora pro leve, já lutando pelo título, sem ter essa experiência ainda na categoria?
Cara, com certeza é complicado, né? Cada pessoa é de uma forma, cada um vem de um jeito. Né? Eu demorei um pouco para me adaptar no peso leve, né? Quando eu tava lutando de pena, né? E eu não sei da parte dele, mas a categoria peso leve é a categoria mais difícil que tem.
It's difficult, you know, everyone's different. You know, I obviously took a little bit of time to adapt to lightweight when I came up from featherweight, but you know, we're going to have to see. He doesn't have the experience yet fighting at this high level, so we're going to have to see.
Adding more intrigue to the main event, top contender Arman Tsarukyan revealed on social media that he is serving as the backup fighter for UFC 317. Tsarukyan, who is riding a strong 4-fight win streak and earned a narrow split decision victory over Oliveira at UFC 300, was originally slated to fight Islam Makhachev for the title before a back injury forced him to withdraw. With Makhachev now targeting the welterweight division, Tsarukyan's presence as a backup adds another layer of tension to Fight Week. Should either Oliveira or Topuria be forced to withdraw, Tsarukyan will step in, keeping the event intact and the title fight alive.
Charles, I'm curious. They announced that, or it's come out that Arman Tsarukyan will be the backup fighter for this title fight. If something crazy happened, would you be okay fighting him in a rematch on short notice?
Tá sendo falado aí que o Arman é o reserva. Se alguma coisa acontecer, você tá ok lutando com o Arman?
Cara, não sei se ele é o reserva, mas se você colocar isso aí, vambora, não tem o que fazer. Né? Ele é um cara gigante, é um cara também que fez grandes lutas, então por que não?
I don't know if he is the backup, but if that's what the UFC decides, then that's what we're going to do. You know, he's also a great guy and a great opponent, so we'll see.
Beneil Dariush, who previously shared the octagon with Oliveira, gave insight into the Brazilian's unpredictable fighting style. He noted how Oliveira disrupts rhythm-dependent strikers with aggressive clinch work, sharp knees, and relentless forward pressure. Dariush pointed out that Topuria, who often thrives on timing, clean counters, and measured head movement, might find it difficult to settle into his usual game. He warned that Oliveira's chaotic approach, especially in the early rounds, could prevent Topuria from gaining momentum, something that could tilt the fight in Oliveira's favor if he controls the tempo.
I think it's a lot closer than people think. I think Charles is really tough. I think he's got a good chin, he's got good jiu-jitsu, he's got great striking, and what's going to be difficult for Ilia is Charles's striking is, I think, really dangerous against boxers, against good boxers. The way he throws his knees, the way he, clinches, and those are things you can do to slow down Ilia. Because, for example, a good boxer will dip low to fake or feint to go get in on the inside, and that's times where Charles will just raise his knee and mess with your timing, or throw a kick, things like that. So I think the fight's a lot closer. I understand why people are favoring Ilia, and I think if you had to ask me, I probably would favor him as well, but I don't think it's going to be like, oh, he's going to walk through through Charles like everybody thinks.
Meanwhile, Luke Thomas offered a broader perspective that focused more on the significance of the bout itself. He acknowledged that many fans originally anticipated a Topuria-Islam Makhachev showdown, but argued that Oliveira's style brings just as much excitement. For Thomas, the draw lies in the contrast Oliveira's wild, high-risk offense, meeting Topuria's tight, powerful striking style. He also touched on the larger implications of Makhachev's move to welterweight, which could eventually lead to marquee fights against names like Jack Della Maddalena, Sean Brady, or Khamzat Chimaev. From his point of view, this fight is part of a broader evolution in multiple divisions.
The number one fight that could have been made among all permutations was Islam-Ilia. That's the best fight that could have been made. But the point I've been trying to make is that while that would be the most desirable one to choose, it's not like you're getting something bad even though you're not getting it. In other words, Topuria against Oliveira for the lightweight belt is fire. I don't care what anybody else says. It's fire. And then I've been saying this whole time, Islam going up to 170 and seeing how he matches up there with Della Maddalena, potentially Brady, potentially Rachmanov, potentially Gary, potentially Buckley. I mean, any number of ways in which that could go.
Tim Welch shared a more cautious take, questioning whether Topuria's move to lightweight might be too soon. While Topuria has looked nearly flawless at featherweight, Welch highlighted the leap in competition that comes with facing someone as experienced and unorthodox as Oliveira. He noted that Oliveira's upright stance, devastating knees, and range-based offense could pose serious challenges to Topuria's more compact, boxing-centered style. For Welch, the risk lies not just in Topuria's lack of experience at 155 pounds, but also in whether his tools will adapt well against a seasoned veteran who thrives in unpredictable exchanges.
That's a dangerous fight. Merab calls it stupid to make Ilia Topuria fight Charles Oliveira before Islam Makhachev.
How is that?
Ilia Topuria says he got promised that he would fight for the title if he vacates.
By who? The security guard outside his room?
Yeah, he kind of hinted that he got promised that. I feel like Charles, Ilia,
That'd be fire.
I think Ilia might batter him. The way Charles comes forward with those reckless knees,
and he's got the chin floating up high too.
Stands up tall like a really tall Muay Thai guy, and Ilia's like a low boxer. That's a dangerous fight for Charles.
Michael Chandler, who has twice fought Oliveira, brought a unique and personal view to the conversation. Known for his own knockout power and technical striking, Chandler admitted that Oliveira's durability and ability to thrive in wild brawls make him much more dangerous than he's often given credit for. He recognized Topuria's accuracy and composure, but underscored Oliveira's continued evolution as a striker, combined with his elite grappling. According to Chandler, it's not easy to put Oliveira away, and Topuria will have to face adversity in ways he hasn't before, especially at lightweight.
Lightweight division is being turned on its head. Islam Makhachev vacated. He's going to welterweight. We have a title fight pretty much a month away exactly right now for the vacant belt between Ilia Topuria and Charles Oliveira. I guess, are you surprised this is the way everything played out, from Islam not keeping the belt and it being like an interim or something to the fight we ultimately got for the vacant title?
No, I'm not surprised. You know, and I think maybe some of those rumors and stuff maybe played into my decision on why I wanted to fight Paddy, why I wanted to get back in there. Obviously, if you look at the timing, I should have had a win against Oliveira. I messed that up. I should have had a win against Paddy. I messed that up. I've had these great opportunities and they've just slipped through my fingertips. So if I would have beat Charles, I would be fighting Ilia for the title right now, you know, but this is the way the sport goes. I'm not surprised at all the craziness that's happening. I'm happy Ilia came up to 155. I'm happy Max is at 155. You got Poirier. Shoot, you got Poirier leaving the sport here in the next 6 weeks or whatever it is, which is crazy. You got Gaethje, you got Paddy. There's a bunch of different stuff going on. So I'll be cage side for that fight to watch it, and we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, who do you think is going to win?
Man, it's tough. You don't bet against freaking Charles Oliveira because he's so dang good everywhere, and he's a really hard guy to beat. With that being said, Ilia Topuria's got some crazy power in his hands and crazy accurate strikes. So it'll be very interesting to see.
Mateusz Gamrot also leaned toward Oliveira, citing his physical advantages and deeper experience in high-pressure fights. Gamrot emphasized that Oliveira has fought and beaten elite competition at 155 pounds for years, while Topuria has only tested those waters once against Jai Herbert. For Gamrot, the deciding factors are Oliveira's comfort at this weight, his size, and the fact that he's survived and thrived through brutal wars. Though Topuria is undeniably dangerous, Gamrot believes Oliveira's well-roundedness and resilience could make the difference.
Next month, the lightweight championship is on the line. Ilia and Charles, who do you have?
Very interesting matchup. Both guys has power and skills to get the win this fight. Like Ilia can knock him out, the Oliveira. He has heavy hands for sure. But also Charles Oliveira has a lot of good tools to beat Ilia in the ground, in the feet, everywhere. But I think Oliveira is really big guy. Ilia is short guy, and I think this is gonna be much different than the both guys. And I think that this is gonna be advantage for Charles Oliveira, and he can win.
Michael Bisping analyzed the matchup with his usual attention to stylistic detail. He acknowledged Oliveira's fan-favorite aggression, but noted that his tendency to march forward with a high chin and minimal head movement has led to multiple knockdowns, even in victories. Against a precision striker like Topuria, Bisping warned that this kind of defensive vulnerability could be exploited. He described Topuria's style as calculated and powerful, highlighting his disciplined stance, cage-cutting ability, and explosive counterattacks. In contrast, Oliveira's chaotic, high-volume style might leave him open in moments where Topuria can capitalize.
I am leaning towards Ilia Topuria. I think the power in the hands is significant. Of course, he has the wrestling to probably be able to stop the takedowns, but more importantly, he's coming up to 155. I say this all the time. Everybody should move up a weight class and stop cutting so much weight. Remember, Charles Oliveira used to fight at 145, came up to 55, reinvented himself, became one of the most exciting fighters, and of course was a champion. So it's not like Charles Oliveira is going to have some massive size advantage. Ilia Topuria, in the footage that we've seen online, he looks big, he looks bulked up, he's going to be able to hit harder, he'll take a better shot, the cardio is going to be better, and just all round, he will be a much more improved athlete. Everybody should move up a weight class. I've said this a million times, I won't go on about it. However, as I say, I'm leaning towards Ilia, but anything can happen in a mixed martial arts fight.
Sean O'Malley offered a more balanced take, framing the bout as a true toss-up. While emotionally leaning toward Oliveira, O'Malley admitted that Topuria might be too clinical and heavy-handed for the Brazilian to withstand. He praised Oliveira's proven ability to make comebacks and his dangerous mix of striking and submissions, but couldn't ignore how frequently Oliveira absorbs damage. That trait in a fight with someone like Topuria, who finishes most opponents, could be a liability.
Could I get your read on how Topuria versus Oliveira plays out?
Man, that's one where your heart's telling you, you know, Charles, and your brain's telling you Ilia. It's just that one's a coin flip. Can't count Charles out. Ilia's on an absolute tear. You know, Charles does get hit and Ilia cracks. That fight I am very excited for.
Ultimately, UFC 317 is shaping up to be a defining moment for both Oliveira and Topuria. For Oliveira, it's a chance to reclaim his title and prove once again that resilience and experience matter in a sport where doubters are everywhere. For Topuria, it's a golden opportunity to rise as a two-division champion and carry the torch forward as the next big name in MMA. Whether it ends in a first-round knockout or a grinding submission battle, the fans are in for a war. With the spotlight on two of the most dynamic fighters in the world, UFC 317 promises fireworks and legacy-defining action, all set on the grand stage of International Fight Week.